Hey, hey all, good evening. So, right. So I'll keep this short, 15 minutes, I've been told. And I'll take you towards today's agenda first. So it will be, I'll first start off with some of the challenges faced in the current ecosystem. I'll start off with the challenges faced in the current ecosystem, right, which has shifted the advertiser's focus more towards engagement from an acquisition standpoint, right, and hence how the need for remarketing has stemmed, and how everybody is moving towards a performance marketing strategy and not look at acquisition and remarketing separately, right. After which I will also tell who is remarketing for, right, where I break some misconceptions about how remarketing is associated with certain verticals and not others, right? And before I do a deep dive into some of how remarketing works and some of the best practices to follow on the same, and I finish it off with some of the market insights and current trends that they have, right? So the tipping point, the reason why I said some of the challenges that we face is that we have 1.5 million apps each on Play Store as well as the App Store, right? So what happens beyond the install? After you get the install, what do you do? How do you engage with the users, right? And each of these things are downloaded, there were 90 billion downloads in 2016 across both Play Store and App Stores. There was, to be precise, 60 billion app downloads on the Play Store, followed by 30 billion app downloads on the App Store, right? So what actually happens now is that once you get that installed, there are so many downloads that are happening. How do you resurface your app? How do you keep it? How do you raise brand recall? How do you make them how do you make those apps habit forming? These are important questions to ask, because that leads us to the next question, because you spend a whole lot of money on acquiring these loyal users. By a loyal user, as per a remarketer study, they define it as anybody who has spent 3 sessions or more on your app, right? So how do you maximize for ROI? Clearly, this user has got intent, and the underlying proposition to this is that on average, if I asked you how many apps you have on your phone, as per a study by eMarketer again, they said that on average the Indian user has got about 33 apps compared to a US user who's got about 40 apps. On average, daily you use in India we use about 7 apps, in the US it's between 4 to 6 apps. So what happens to the remaining? So they're not uninstalled, right? They have clear intent to using your app, just that they are dormant and passive users. So how do you resurface them? How do you get them back to using it? And how do you maximize that ROI? So moving on, we also found out that 25%, that is the D1 retention that we usually see. So how do you engage with these people? How do you engage with the remaining 75% who have the app on their system, on the phones, but are not resurfacing it? Right? And what we have seen generally now is that last year alone, we found that 50% have already started using remarketing in some form or the other as part of their performance marketing strategy, and more have shown intent. So it's not going anywhere, and it's here to stay. So what has that done to the holistic view of things? We have performance marketing, which was earlier seen as just acquisition. So it stops at an install and the story ends there. Right? Now we move on beyond that to say that now here comes remarketing, where you can actually engage with them. One thing to note is that user acquisition, when you actually follow a user acquisition strategy, so what then happens is that it can drive all your targeted display efforts, your content marketing efforts. They're really, really good at driving traffic, right? But not conversions. Conversion optimization is done purely by remarketing. So it is necessary, you can look at it as one complementing the other. Remarketing alone cannot drive traffic, it does only conversions. UA does traffic but not conversion optimization. So you mix both together in the right ratio to get the best result. So nowadays, when you look at most of these startups or most of the bigger companies, they don't have a marketing or digital marketing department. They usually call it performance marketing, right? You have performance marketing, and then you have other divisions which talk about email or engagement, you have email marketing divisions and so on, but more and more they're also getting more integrated as we move on, right? That's one part of it. So essentially this is the funnel. You start off with prospecting, or you come up with, broadly speaking, a pen portrait. You come up with your ideal user segments, and you say these are the people I'm going to go and target. Then you go spend your money across different channels to acquire those users, right? And then happens the activation. So generally speaking, that activation could be a sign up, it could be a first event. Maybe in case of an Uber or an Ola, it could be a first ride, right? If it's an e-commerce or retail app, it could be a first purchase. If it is a food app like your Swiggy or your Zomato, it could be a first order, and so on and so forth. If it's a Book My Show, it's probably a first booking on a movie ticket, and so on and so forth. So you essentially optimize for that, because the whole idea is to say you're inviting the user to experience the app first, right? Based on the fact that your app is able to provide a superlative experience, which will then get the user coming back to your app again and again, and hence you can maximize your ROI from that user. So, today's discussion is going to focus on the activation and the re-engagement and retargeting parts. Right. So there is a misconception that remarketing is generally meant for the retail and e-commerce verticals, right? The guys who sell fashion and jewelry and your general Amazon/Flipkart types e-commerce companies, but that is not true. The fact of the matter is that remarketing is for anybody who wants to invite users and get that experience on their app, right? You want them to experience the entire product lifecycle of your app. Once that is done, you assume that you have been able to provide that superlative experience, and hence they keep returning back. So, one, banking and finance. So the point is, many a time, let's say you download a nice ASA app or something, and you downloaded it, but then before you start using it, you actually have to key in your credentials, otherwise the app is useless. So we can nudge these users towards that first event. In this case, their KPI is registrations. So the currency for all of these apps is very, very different. For example, if we see retail, it's obviously a first purchase, as I mentioned earlier. For social, their currency is actually app opens. They want more sessions on their app, so they optimize for that. And all of these remarketing campaigns can be optimized for those particular KPIs, right? Followed by travel. So you have a whole bunch of apps out there where you have it on your phone, and usually it's just lying there. It's dormant. People have forgotten about it. And only when a holiday or one of those vacation time comes, does it surface back. And it will be a good time to nudge the user through various channels to say, hey, you know what, you have this app installed, and maybe you should start doing some transactions there, right? Similarly, food delivery or any O2O, right? Any online to offline segment that includes your taxi apps, your aggregator apps, and so on. So we'll do it. Basically, this shows specific use cases for each of them. In the case of retail, perhaps the person has downloaded your app but has not made a first purchase. So how do you nudge the user towards a first purchase? Maybe you want to do a promotion, an offer, maybe a discount, maybe a cashback, right? So this is how it gets shown. I mean, the user is browsing, he's probably on a game, he's on a news app or anywhere else that he normally consumes his feed from. And we actually show an ad over there which says, hey, you know what, you actually just installed this particular app, so would you like to make a purchase, right? And here's a coupon for you to do the same. And that's essentially what happens. On click, the user is directly taken to that particular product page that is shown, so that the experience is very seamless and he completes it. Right? Similarly, the same is the case for social apps. As I said, the currency for them is more sessions, the number of sessions per day per user. So they optimize for that. Similarly, for travel, the one thing that you can notice over here is the type of ad that you see, which is called a native ad. It doesn't interrupt the user, right? You're not interrupting their browsing experience. It is as seamless as possible. It looks more like the content that they like to consume. So remarketing can enable all of these things, right? So like the person is reading something, he's probably on a news app reading about 5 things that you need to put on, 5 must-have things for your travel vacation, and maybe you want to show a travel ad right over there. Right? So all of these things are possible through remarketing, specific segment-based targeting, and so on and so forth. And it results in a lot better conversions generally. Similarly, for O2O online to offline, you can think in terms of, okay, it's the pre-lunch hour is a good time to probably increase my ad spends towards my existing users who have my app installed, to nudge them to order something on my app because they probably haven't ordered anything for the last 4 or 5 days, right? So you're probably going to be losing this user, probably to a competitor, or probably he just forgot about it. So you're just trying to remind that user, saying that come back, it's a pre-lunch hour, you're getting hungry, and here's something for you, here's probably a small offer for you to start ordering on the app again. So you're trying to drive incremental revenue for your app. And there are so many other use cases, particularly even for gaming, maybe to drive in-app purchases, right? You're probably on a level 3, if you're a game developer and the user has gone to level 3 and has not gone beyond, you probably want to nudge him, you want to incentivize that person to say, okay, we're going to give you an ad, we're going to probably give you a few free coins or virtual currencies or whatever is the virtual currency that the game uses, and get them to the next level, right? Because that's the only way the game developer makes money, because at the end of the day, he wants more people to use his app so that he can show more ads, and hence the cycle continues, right? So the deep dive into how mobile remarketing works, there are each of these segments I go into detail in the following slides, but just to give you an overview. So there is real-time audience segmentation, where what we generally do is to capture the intent of the user, right? If somebody has added a product to a cart, it's very clear that particular person has got a very high intent to purchase that product as opposed to generic products, right? So we can segment users based on that. Followed by there's dynamic creative optimization. What it basically means is there is no one size fits all, right? What I can show a black shoe to a woman, or maybe it's a stiletto or a gladiators or whatever it is. I say all of this because my fashion vocabulary is good, because I ran a fashion startup before this, right? So let's say there's one particular woman you're actually showing ballets and it's black, right? It may not really necessarily speak to another woman who's probably interested in red stilettos or red gladiators, right? Now, can you change your copy and your messaging and your creative based on those segments and based on those particular profiles that you have or personas that you create? It's possible, right? And similarly, dynamic bid optimization. The whole idea is to say, how can you maximize your ROI by bidding the right amount for the right user, right? For a for a very high intent user, you obviously want to bid more as compared to a low intent user, right? For somebody who's just skimming through your app, he just wants to know, she wants to know what it is. Probably you don't want to spend that much, as opposed to somebody who's browsed a particular product or made a few searches. Maybe she searched for crop tops, or maybe she added something to a wish list, or added something to the cart. These are all high intent users. The chances of her converting or buying a particular product on your app is much higher. So you want to probably bid higher. So all of these various elements, the 3 different components, come together to really make remarketing work, right? Which is why I said remarketing is for conversion optimization, while your UA, your user acquisition, drives your acquisitions essentially. Right? You can get a lot of people, but it can't make them convert because it doesn't speak to them on a personalization basis. Right? This essentially delivers personalized ad experiences, and that is massive. It changes the ball, it changes the game altogether. Right? So again, going into real-time audience segmentation, essentially what I said was, you have to put event listeners, or I'll do a deep dive into that as well. I'll go into details of how you can set up in the best practices to follow. If you want to run some remarketing campaigns, how do you actually set up your ad, right? And how do you set up campaigns? So I'll be sharing that, but on a very high level, what it basically means is when you may have different events, right? From, if you look at the normal life cycle of a particular user on your app, there is an app open, there could be a registration, there could be a product, maybe they viewed a particular product page, maybe they made a few searches, those search pages, maybe they added something to a wish list, and so on and so forth, right? So essentially you segment all of those users real time. So we actually create all these various segments so that we can focus on how we can retarget them at a later point in time. Followed by, again, over here, when I talk about the entire personalized ad experiences piece, this forms a part of that. Where you're trying to say this copy and this messaging speaks better for this particular person, right? And we also know for a fact that maybe flight tickets or hotel room rates keep changing on a daily basis during the season time. So what do? Can you show the rates accurately, because these are all impulse purchases, right? You want to do it right then and there because you don't want to miss out on that offer. So there is capability to show that particular day's price in the ad. Similarly, customizing the messaging to that particular person. If you're looking for beach vacations, I'm not going to show you a copy for hill stations. It just makes no sense, right? So all of these personalizations are possible only in remarketing and not necessarily in UA. It is to a much lesser extent, right? It's more of a spray and pray approach as compared to a more targeted approach in the case of remarketing, because you're talking to people who have already installed your app. And the last bit, as I told you, it's about how much to bid for whom. You want to maximize the ROI, right? For high intent users, you obviously want to bid more, while for low intent user, you want to bid less. So all of this is automated in most of the remarketing platforms that we see today. All of this together again makes for great personalized ad experiences. So, right. So this is, my time is up. So I'll just brush through some of these slides. Essentially, what it says is, this is all the data that we get. All those people who installed and all those people who did certain activities on your app, and these activities change based on what your app is. As I said, it could be a banking app to a food app to a travel app to anything. Right? Once we get those events, we segment those people into various sets, and accordingly, so for example, in the case of Uber or Ola, we segment them into things like people who have taken a first ride, people who have taken more than 2 rides in the last 2 days, and several other segments that we can think of, right? So that whenever these cohorts appear on the network or on an exchange, we're able to accurately target them with personalized experiences. You can customize your ad experience messages, give them specific offers, and get the maximum ROI out of them. It drives incremental revenue, right? Followed by, so these are the examples. Right. So, and again, for the best practices, most of the time when you set up your remarketing on the app level, you need to put some event listeners, and they usually put event listeners only on the install, app open, and order. But there are so many other stages that could give additional data points which can help optimize your campaigns and drive the maximum ROI out of it, right? So those are some of those events, and this is obviously for a retail or an e-commerce app. But then, depending upon the app, as I said, I just gave you the example of a transportation, a taxi aggregator app, where it could be things like first ride, or it could be things like they went to the payment page and used a payment wallet and uploaded some money into it, and so on and so forth. Every one of those things can actually give us signals, and accordingly we can optimize campaigns for that. Also, a very important part about remarketing is the attribution window. So although I did mention it's about impulse purchases, you show a jewelry ad or you show a top and you may actually buy it then and there, or maybe it's a hotel ad, or because you're planning to travel sometime soon, so it does work. But there are many other times when you show an ad and there is clearly intent. Maybe you're at your work, it's a Tuesday, and Tuesday afternoon and you see this particular product being shown, and maybe you want to go back home that night and then look at it on your laptop or your desktop before you make that purchase decision. Or maybe you want to do it over a weekend. So normally what we recommend is a 7-day attribution window, but this differs based on vertical to vertical. It depends upon the behavior of users on your app, and accordingly you can tailor this particular attribution window. But normally across verticals, especially for retail and e-commerce, we find that an attribution window of 7 days is ideal. Right. This is a good example because the last thing you want to do to a person who already has your app is to show generic ads. Right. When somebody has already added some products to their cart, instead of saying best-selling shoes for you, you might as well say these are the products that are already you're interested in, and your cart is waiting. That's probably a much more tailored message for those people. Again, so if actually that's a GIF. Okay. I don't think you would have seen the ad that comes below that, because that's essentially you're seeing at something which is moving and your eyes don't really follow on banner ads. So what we do is to actually give you multiple ad formats which are rich, native, and a lot more engaging, right? These are high performance ad formats. It's not your typical banner ads anymore. So you generally get to have interactive stuff like your carousels, and they are full page ad experiences. It's more seamless. It makes for a much better personalized ad experience, right? these are more examples. I'll just skip them in the interest of time. Okay, so deep linking is essentially once you index your app, right? You don't want somebody clicks on the ad on a particular product that they're interested in, and they don't want to be taken to the home page of your app. They want to be taken to that particular product page so that they can complete the purchase. So the whole idea is to make it seamless, right? And that's essentially what it is. There's a difference between default deep link and conditional deep link. It's more technical in nature. We always recommend conditional deep linking. And the last industry trend that we have noticed is, okay, so this is something that I can attest for because this is again an industry study that's happened. Essentially, the way an ad network or any of the ad channels that you put your money in, the way they look at a user is very different. If I have a smartphone, I have a tablet, and I have a laptop, multiple of them, right? According, in the eyes of the ad network, they look at you as 3 or 4 different people, but that's not the case. It's the same person who's using all those devices. So accordingly, your ad experiences also change, right? And essentially, that's what this diagram is about. And what we have noticed is that when people jump from one device to another, the chances of conversion of making that person buy a product is much higher. So this is just a thought that you can have in your mind so that you can integrate your ad campaigns. When you talk to your ad networks, you can ask them for some of these things and see if they can provide you some of these capabilities, right? So it's one way to evaluate ad networks on the quality. But that's pretty much done. These are again some how it is done, which I'll probably skip or I'll take it as in my Q&As. Thanks again.
Thank you, Praveen. Any questions from the audience? I think we'll have time for one question. I think there was a lot of what you said was, I think, comes from great user experience, you know. No? So we'll take that offline then. Thank you so much, Praveen. I would request Raja from GMASA to please come on stage and present Praveen with the memento. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Praveen Rajaretnam from Inmobi. Thank you, Praveen.